Let's start our conversation. Mr. Zhao, thank you for joining us. Now, countries such as Brazil, South Africa, Mexico have been leading the efforts to launch the negotiations for a legally binding treaty to ban nuclear weapons. But as we've heard, there are countries who are staunchly against it, and there are countries such as China who have voiced also its specific opinion. What are the different reasons behind these two camps? Could you explain to us briefly?
Well, in fact, all countries, including both nuclear weapon states and non-nuclear weapon states, are already committed to the ultimate goal of nuclear disarmament. In fact, the nuclear weapon states are legally bound by the NPT treaty to negotiate a treaty to disarm their nuclear weapons.
The non-proliferation treaty you're talking about.
The only difference between the two camps is what's the most effective approach to achieve this goal. For nuclear weapon states, they still believe that nuclear weapons play a critical role for their national security, and their allies depend on the nuclear umbrella for deterring nuclear and conventional threat from third countries. And therefore, they advocate an approach that is called incremental and step-by-step approach, which include efforts to gradually reduce nuclear arsenals, which includes the US-Russia bilateral nuclear reduction treaties. They want to put in place a treaty to ban nuclear weapons tests. They want to negotiate a treaty to prevent further production of fissile materials. They want to create more nuclear weapon-free zones in the world. However, on the other side, the non-nuclear weapon states, they believe that bureaucratic inertia is the fundamental reason for lack of progress in the non-nuclear weapon states, and therefore they want to impose moral and legal pressure and encourage the political leaders in nuclear weapon states to take fundamental measures to undermine the nuclear deterrence on which current nuclear weapon states depend on for their security. So they have very different visions for what's the best approach towards achieving nuclear disarmament.
Well, efforts by countries to start this bilateral negotiation towards nuclear disarmament have actually been going on for over 2 decades. However, little progress has been made in the past. What has stalled such efforts for so long, and what brought about the breakthrough that we saw last year, which led to the start of the negotiation this year?
Right. For many years, countries have tried to promote nuclear disarmament within the existing multilateral disarmament mechanism, such as the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva. However, due to the Conference on Disarmament adopting the consensus rule, so any single country can prohibit any progress from taking place. So
everything has to be decided by consensus instead of a vote where you decide by majority.
Exactly. And also, so the patience among the non-nuclear weapon states is running out. Therefore, they have started the movement to call for international attention to the consequences, the humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons. So a number of countries, including Norway, Mexico, and Austria, they have convened international conferences promoting international attention to the humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons, and that efforts lead to many countries to want to negotiate a UN treaty completely banning nuclear weapons. And even among the nuclear weapon states, there are major division among themselves. The US and Russia have the most sizable nuclear arsenals, and without them making further cut to their nuclear stockpiles, it's difficult for second-tier nuclear weapon states, including UK, France, and China, to have a multilateral negotiation on nuclear disarmament. And also Israel, which is a country that does not even admit its possession of nuclear weapons, it's difficult to incorporate Israel into the existing negotiations, and not to mention additional countries like India and Pakistan, who illegally tested their nuclear devices in 1998, and inviting them to existing negotiations would be seen as granting a recognition of their illegal nuclear status. So all these difficulties contributed to the lack of progress on nuclear disarmament.
Oh, I remember last August I was in Geneva covering a very important meeting where the UN working group on exactly what we're talking about, this task, put forward the vote, and eventually by a show of hands the resolution or the report was adopted by a small majority to be submitted to the UN General Assembly to start this negotiation. So a lot of division anyway there, even among the countries who were supporting this negotiation to be started. But what exactly will such a ban, a treaty, do for the world? And with the absence of nuclear countries, can it really be effective?
Well, it is impossible for them to negotiate a comprehensive nuclear weapons convention with verification measures and reinforced measures to make sure that nuclear weapons can be eliminated through a verifiable and irreversible manner. Without the participation of nuclear weapon states, that is very much unachievable. So it is very likely that the negotiating parties will seek to have a nuclear ban treaty that simply declares that nuclear weapons are illegal. And that could impose legal and moral restraint on existing nuclear weapon states.
Will that be instrumental to the eventual goal of achieving a weapons-free world then? Because we have for instance, the NPT, as you mentioned, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which has been effective, right, to curb the spread of nuclear weapons. Now, if we have this international treaty, will it help things?
Well, it's the hope of many countries that this ban treaty could contribute to the ideal of building a world free of nuclear weapons, which is fully in line with the NPT treaty. However, there are also other concerns. For example, some people have raised the possibility that some non-nuclear weapon states, they can sign up to this new nuclear ban treaty. And believing that they have already demonstrated their commitment to nuclear disarmament, they can then withdraw from the existing NPT treaty. And that will pose danger to nuclear non-proliferation, because it's the NPT that has very strict verification measures, making sure countries cannot take advantage of their peaceful nuclear program and to develop a potential military nuclear capability. So that could, in fact, contributes to more virtual nuclear capabilities around the world.
Mm-hmm. The latest assessment from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute indicates that the US and Russia possess the largest number of nuclear arsenals. So and there you can see the combined total number of nuclear warheads in possession by these countries are way bigger than the combined total of any other countries that are currently believed to have nuclear weapons. So, Mr. Zhao, how do you see the absence of the US and Russia in the negotiation of this treaty in the effect of achieving a nuclear weapons-free world?
You're very right. Right now, US and Russia possess more than 90% of the international nuclear weapons stockpile. And without their efforts to promote nuclear disarmament, there's no way to make concrete progress. But current political struggles between the two countries make them very difficult to push forward nuclear disarmament negotiations. They accuse each other of non-compliance with other nuclear arms control agreements, such as INF Treaty. And they also disagree whether they should include other related topics into nuclear negotiations, such as missile defense. And also with Mr. Trump in White House, he has made very conflicting voices about nuclear policy. On one day, he called for a world free of nuclear weapons. On the other day, he said, let's build and even expand American nuclear forces and let there be a nuclear arms race between US and Russia, and sending very confusing signals.
Also encouraging other countries in Asia to have their nuclear weapons. But let's talk about China's position here. I'm sure a lot of people are very curious. Generations of Chinese leaders have stated that by developing nuclear weapons, China aims to have the minimum capacity to launch an effective nuclear counterattack. And for the ongoing UN meeting, here is what the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs had to say.
After careful study, China has recently decided not to attend the negotiation. The decision to maintain the current international arms control and disarmament region comes after close consideration. It also reflects China's responsible attitude towards maintaining strategic global balance and stability.
That was the spokesperson for China's foreign ministry. How do you interpret, can we understand China's pledge to have a responsible approach towards a nuclear-free world?
So basically, China has long called for a complete prohibition and total elimination of nuclear weapons. But China also believes that we have to take care of the practical security concerns of all countries. If nuclear weapons are immediately prohibited and even eliminated, countries will have to face the reality that they have very asymmetrical conventional military capabilities. And those countries that have inferior conventional power will fear that they will face a new military threat, and therefore they will invest more on their conventional military capabilities. So that could lead to a conventional arms race. And also, without the fear that conventional conflict could escalate to the nuclear level, countries might feel less restrained to initiate conventional war. Therefore, eliminating nuclear weapons could have negative consequences to the overall stability and security of the world. So China believes we have to take a prudent and step-by-step approach, taking care of the practical security concerns.